The October wind cut through the Colorado mountains like a blade made of winter itself, carrying with it the promise of an early snow and the scent of pine and danger. Daniel Crowfeather moved through the wilderness with the silent grace of his ancestors, his moccasined feet finding purchase on rock and root without disturbing so much as a pebble. He'd been tracking the white hunter for 3 days now, following a trail that spoke of skill and desperation in equal measure. The hunter was good, better than most white men Daniel had encountered. His tracks showed patience, intelligence, and a deep understanding of the wild country. But Daniel was better. He was Lakota, born to these mountains, raised on stories of the old ways, when his people moved freely across the Great Plains before the white man came with his iron horses and broken promises. Daniel paused at the edge of a clearing, his dark eyes scanning the forest beyond. The hunter's trail led through here, but something felt wrong. The silence was too complete, the shadows too deep. Daniel's hand moved instinctively to the war club at his belt, his fingers tracing the carved symbols that told the story of his victories in battle. He was here for justice, for the blood debt that demanded payment. The hunter had killed his brother, Sweetgrass, in a fight over trapped beaver 3 weeks ago. At least that's what the survivors had said. Daniel had sworn over his brother's grave that he would find the white man and take his life in return, as the old laws demanded. But now, crouched in the underbrush, with his prey so close he could smell the wood smoke from his campfire, Daniel felt something unexpected: doubt. The trail he'd been following told a different story than the one he'd been told. This hunter moved like a man being hunted, not like a killer confident in his escape. His camps were hidden, his fires small and carefully banked. This was the behavior of a man running from something, not toward it. Daniel pushed the doubts aside. He had sworn an oath, and the spirits of his ancestors would not forgive him if he failed to honor it. He began to move forward, following the scent of smoke to its source. The hunter's camp was tucked into a natural shelter formed by fallen logs and overhanging rock, nearly invisible from more than a few feet away. Daniel could see the man now, silhouetted against the small fire, and what he saw made him pause again. The hunter was young, maybe 25, with sun-darkened skin and hair the color of autumn leaves. But it was his face that gave Daniel pause, gaunt with hunger, marked with the kind of weariness that came from too many nights sleeping with one eye open. This was not the face of a cold-blooded killer celebrating his escape. This was the face of a man haunted by something he'd done. Daniel notched an arrow to his bow and stepped into the firelight. "Do not move," he said in careful English, his voice carrying the authority of death itself. The hunter froze, his hand halfway to his rifle. Slowly, he turned his head to look at Daniel, and their eyes met across the dancing flames. Daniel saw recognition there, and something else, resignation perhaps, or maybe even relief. "You're him," the hunter said quietly, "the dead man's brother." "I am Daniel Crowfeather," Daniel replied, his bow never wavering. "Sweetgrass was my brother. You killed him." The hunter nodded slowly. "My name is Ezra Brennan, and you're right. I did kill him." Daniel had expected denial or lies or desperate pleading. The simple admission caught him off guard. "You confess." "I confess to killing him," Ezra said, "but not to murder." "Explain." Ezra gestured slowly toward a fallen log. "May I sit? I've been running for 3 weeks and I'm tired of running." Daniel considered this, then nodded. Ezra settled onto the log, his movements careful and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a man who had been carrying a heavy burden. "I was checking my trapline along Beaver Creek," he began. "I heard shots, then screaming. When I got to the clearing, I saw 3 white men attacking your brother. They had him down, and they were going to kill him slow." Daniel's grip tightened on his bow. "Go on." "Your brother was fighting back, but he was outnumbered. They'd already wounded him bad. I could have walked away, should have walked away, but I couldn't watch them torture him like that. So you killed them. I killed 2 of them." Ezra said. "The third one got away, but in the fight, in all the confusion, your brother, he thought I was with them. He came at me with his knife, and I reacted. I shot him." Daniel felt the world tilt around him. "You lie." "I wish I was lying," Ezra said quietly. "I've been wishing that for 3 weeks, but it's the truth. I killed your brother trying to save him. The survivor, he said you murdered Sweetgrass for his furs. The survivor was Jim Hartley, and he's a liar and a murderer. He's also the one who's been hunting me ever since, trying to silence me before I can tell anyone what really happened." Daniel stared at the white man across the fire, trying to read the truth in his face. Everything he'd believed about his brother's death was crumbling around him, replaced by a story that was both better and worse than what he'd imagined. "Why should I believe you?" Daniel asked. "Because I'm not trying to escape," Ezra replied. "I could have kept running, could have crossed into Mexico or Canada, but I came here instead, to the sacred places your people told me about. I came here to wait for you." "To wait for me?" "To wait for justice. I killed your brother, even if I didn't mean to. By your laws, by my laws, that makes me guilty of something. You have the right to take my life." Daniel studied the hunter's face in the firelight. There was no deception there, no fear, only a bone-deep weariness, and something that might have been hope. Hope that the truth would finally be told, that justice would finally be served. "Show me," Daniel said. "Show you what? Show me where it happened. Show me the proof of your words." Ezra nodded slowly. "It's 2 days' ride from here. But we'll have to be careful. Hartley's got men looking for both of us now." Daniel considered this. Every instinct told him to kill the white man and be done with it. But something in Ezra's story rang true, and Daniel had always been able to smell lies the way other men smelled smoke. This man was telling the truth, or at least what he believed to be the truth. "We go at dawn," Daniel said, lowering his bow. "But know this, Hunter, if you try to deceive me, if you try to escape, I will kill you slowly." "I understand," Ezra said, "and I won't run. I'm tired of running." They sat in silence for a while, 2 enemies sharing a fire, each lost in his own thoughts. Finally, Ezra spoke again. "I want you to know, your brother fought bravely. Even wounded, even outnumbered, he never stopped fighting. He died as a warrior should." Daniel felt something crack inside his chest. "He was a good man, a good brother. I could see that. Even in those last moments, even when he thought I was his enemy, there was honor in him, courage." "He had a wife," Daniel said quietly, "a son who will grow up without a father." "I know. I've thought about that every day since it happened." They lapsed into silence again, the fire crackling between them. Daniel found himself studying the hunter, trying to understand this strange white man who had waited for death rather than flee from it. There was something about Ezra Brennan that didn't fit the usual pattern of the whites who came to the mountains, something that spoke of honor, of a code that went beyond the color of his skin. "Why do you live alone in the mountains?" Daniel asked. Ezra poked at the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling up into the dark sky. "Same reason you're out here hunting me instead of home with your family, I'd guess. Some things you can't face, some things you can't live with." "What things?" "I had a wife once, a daughter. They died of the fever while I was away on a hunting trip. I came home to find them buried, and I couldn't stay there, couldn't live with the memory." Daniel understood. He'd seen that look before, in the eyes of warriors who had lost everything that mattered to them. "How long?" 3 years. I've been in these mountains for 3 years, trying to forget. And has it worked?" Ezra laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What do you think?" Daniel nodded. Pain was pain, regardless of the color of the man who carried it. "I lost my wife 2 winters ago. Soldiers came to our village, said they were looking for stolen horses. She tried to protect our daughter, and they—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "I'm sorry," Ezra said quietly. "Are you? Or do you just say that because you fear my bow?" Ezra met his eyes across the fire. "I'm sorry because I know what it's like to lose everything. I'm sorry because no man should have to carry that kind of pain." Daniel studied the hunter's face and saw only sincerity there. "Your daughter, how old was she?" "7. Her name was Emma. She had red hair like her mother, and she laughed like music." "My daughter is 6. Her name is Little Bird. She asks for her mother every night." They sat in the growing darkness. Two fathers bound by grief, two men who had lost everything that made life worth living. The fire burned low between them, and Daniel found himself thinking about the strange turns that life could take, the way enemies could become something else entirely when they shared their pain. "I should kill you," Daniel said finally. "Yes," Ezra agreed, "you should. But killing you will not bring my brother back. It will not heal the wound his death has left in our family." "No, it won't." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "But it might bring peace." "Whose peace?" Ezra asked. "Yours or mine?" It was a good question, one that Daniel couldn't answer easily. He'd been so focused on revenge that he'd never considered what would come after. Would killing this white man really ease the pain in his heart? Or would it simply add another ghost to the collection that already haunted his dreams? "Tell me about the men who killed my brother," Daniel said. Ezra's face darkened. "Jim Hartley and his brothers, Pete and Tom. They call themselves trappers, but they're really just thieves and murderers. They've been working this territory for 2 years, stealing from Indian camps, killing anyone who gets in their way." "And you knew this?" "I'd heard stories, but I try to stay away from other men, white or Indian. I just want to be left alone." "But you didn't stay away that day." "No, I couldn't. When I saw what they were doing to your brother, I couldn't just walk away." Daniel felt something shift inside him, a recognition of something he'd thought was lost forever. Here was a white man who had risked his life to save a Lakota warrior, who had killed his own kind to protect an enemy. It was not the action of a man without honor. "Sleep," Daniel said finally. "Tomorrow we ride to the place where my brother died. Tomorrow we learn the truth." Ezra nodded and settled back against a log, using his saddle as a pillow. Daniel remained awake, watching the fire burn down to embers, thinking about justice and revenge, and the sometimes narrow line between them. When dawn broke over the mountains, they rode together through country that grew more familiar with each mile. Daniel had been here before, had hunted these valleys with his brother in better times. Now he was returning to the place where Sweet Grass had died, riding beside the man who had killed him. The trail Ezra followed was clear enough. Game paths and creek beds, the kind of route a man would take if he wanted to avoid being seen. As they rode, Daniel found himself observing the hunter, noting the way he moved through the wilderness, the respect he showed for the land and its creatures. "You hunt like Indian," Daniel observed. "I learned from Indians," Ezra replied. "Old Crow Dog taught me before he died. He said the land speaks to those who know how to listen." "You knew Crow Dog?" "For 2 years. He was like a father to me after I lost my family." Daniel felt another piece of his certainty crumble. Crow Dog had been his uncle, a wise man who had the gift of seeing into men's hearts. If Crow Dog had taken this white man under his wing, there must have been good reason. "He never mentioned you," Daniel said. "He said some things were better kept quiet. Said there were those among your people who wouldn't understand a white man learning the old ways." He was right. They rode in silence for a while, each lost in his own thoughts. The country around them was beautiful in the way that only the high mountains could be. Vast spaces of sky and stone, forests that stretched to the horizon, streams that ran clear and cold from the high peaks. It was country worth dying for, worth living for. "Tell me about your brother," Ezra said, as they followed a ridgeline that offered views for miles in every direction. "Sweet Grass was 2 years younger than me. He was the better hunter, the better tracker. He could find game where other men found only rocks and trees. Family man. He loved his wife and son more than life itself. He was always bringing them gifts, pretty stones, bird feathers, flowers that grew in high places. He said that love was the only thing that made the world beautiful. Sounds like a good man. He was the best of us. When the white soldiers came and the elders talked of war, Sweetgrass always spoke for peace. He said violence only bred more violence, that the cycle had to be broken somewhere. Ezra was quiet for a moment. He was right. Was he? Sometimes I think peace is just another word for surrender. Maybe. But your brother died trying to protect his trapline, not trying to kill anyone. Even when those men attacked him, he was fighting for his life, not for revenge. Daniel considered this. Sweetgrass had always been the gentle one, the one who looked for solutions that didn't involve bloodshed. It was ironic that he had died in violence, killed by a man who had been trying to save him. They reached the beaver meadow, just as the sun was reaching its zenith. Daniel recognized the place immediately, a wide clearing beside a creek, surrounded by aspen trees that were just beginning to turn gold with autumn. It was peaceful, beautiful, the kind of place where a man might expect to find life, not death. Ezra dismounted and walked to a spot near the creek bank. "It happened here," he said quietly. Daniel followed, his eyes taking in the scene. Even after 3 weeks, the signs of violence were still visible. Scuffed earth, broken branches, dark stains on the rocks that could only be blood. But there was something else, something that made Daniel's breath catch in his throat. "There," Ezra said, pointing to a cluster of rocks near the water's edge. "That's where your brother fell." Daniel approached the spot slowly, reverently. Someone had been here after the killing, had arranged the rocks in a pattern that Daniel recognized, a traditional Lakota burial marker, pointing the way to the spirit world. "Who did this?" Daniel asked. "I did," Ezra said quietly. "I couldn't leave him like that. It didn't seem right." Daniel knelt beside the marker, his hand tracing the carefully arranged stones. This was not the work of a casual killer, not the act of a man who saw Indians as less than human. This was the work of someone who understood respect, who honored the dead regardless of their race. "You know our ways," Daniel said. "Crow Dog taught me. He said all spirits deserve honor, regardless of the color of the body they leave behind." Daniel felt tears building in his eyes, the first he'd shed since his brother's death. The marker was perfect, arranged according to the old traditions, pointing toward the setting sun where the spirits of the dead were said to gather. "Show me the rest," Daniel said. Ezra led him around the clearing, pointing out the signs of the struggle. Here was where the first attacker had fallen. There was where the second had died. The tracks told a story of chaos and violence, of a fight that had happened fast and ended in death. "Your brother was over there when I arrived," Ezra said, pointing to a spot near the tree line. "They had him down and they were cutting him, slowly, making him suffer." Daniel could see the place, could read the signs in the disturbed earth and broken vegetation. His brother had fought bravely, but he'd been outnumbered and outgunned. "That's when you intervened?" "I came through the trees there, opened fire on the 2 men torturing your brother, got them both before they knew what hit them. And the third man, he was behind me, trying to circle around. I heard him coming and turned to face him. That's when your brother attacked me." Daniel could picture it, the confusion, the noise, the desperate struggle for survival. In the chaos of battle, it would have been easy to mistake friend for foe. "He thought you were with them," Daniel said. "He had no way of knowing otherwise. I was white, I was shooting, and his mind was probably clouded by pain and shock. He did what any warrior would do. He fought back." Daniel walked to the spot where his brother had died, where his blood had soaked into the earth. The marker Ezra had built was beautiful in its simplicity, a testament to respect and understanding that transcended race. "I need to see the bodies," Daniel said. Ezra nodded and led him to a grove of aspen trees about 50 yards from the creek. There, beneath a cairn of stones, lay the remains of the 2 men Ezra had killed. Daniel examined the bodies, noting the precise shots that had ended their lives. "You're a good shot," he observed. "I had to be. They were torturing your brother, and I only had seconds to act." Daniel found evidence of more than just shooting. One of the men had been scalped, his hair taken in the traditional way, but it hadn't been taken by Indian hands. "Who did this?" Daniel asked, pointing to the scalped man. Your brother. Even dying, even in pain, he took his enemy's hair. Daniel felt a fierce surge of pride. Even in his last moments, Sweetgrass had died as a warrior should, taking trophies from his enemies. It was a good death, an honorable death. There's something else, Ezra said quietly. Something you need to see. He led Daniel to a spot beneath the largest aspen tree, where the ground had been disturbed. Ezra knelt and began brushing away dirt and leaves, revealing a cache that had been hidden beneath the earth. Inside were bags of coins, bundles of furs, and other trade goods. But what caught Daniel's eye were the scalps. Dozens of them, men, women, and children, all bearing the distinctive hair patterns of various Indian tribes. They were scalp hunters, Ezra said. Professional killers, paid by the government to bring back proof of dead Indians. Daniel felt sick. These men hadn't been simple thieves or even casual murderers. They'd been part of the systematic extermination of his people, paid killers who collected bounties on Indian scalps. Your brother wasn't their first victim, Ezra continued, and he wouldn't have been their last. Daniel stared at the gruesome collection, understanding now why his brother had fought so fiercely. Sweetgrass had known what these men were, had known what they represented. He died fighting not just for his life, but for the lives of every Indian they might have killed in the future. I should have let them kill him, Daniel said quietly. What? I should have let them kill him slowly, let him suffer. He was a killer of women and children. No, Ezra said firmly, you did the right thing. Your brother died as a warrior, fighting his enemies. That's better than dying as a victim. Daniel looked at the white man who had killed his brother, who had also saved him from torture and dishonor. The simple narrative of revenge he'd been carrying was gone, replaced by something far more complex. What happens now? Daniel asked. That's up to you. You came here for justice. You found the truth. What you do with it is your choice. Daniel considered this. He'd sworn to take the life of his brother's killer, but everything he'd believed about that killing had been wrong. Ezra Brennan wasn't a cold-blooded murderer. He was a man who had tried to do the right thing and had been forced to live with the consequences. There's still the matter of the blood debt, Daniel said finally. I know. I'm ready to pay it. Are you? Are you ready to die for something you had no choice in doing? Ezra met his eyes steadily. I killed your brother. Intent doesn't change that fact. If my death will bring peace to your family, then I'm ready. Daniel studied the white man's face, looking for any sign of deception or fear. He found none. Ezra Brennan was prepared to die for his actions, regardless of the circumstances that had led to them. My people have laws, Daniel said. Old laws that govern such things. I know. Crow Dog told me about them. Blood for blood. A life for a life. Yes. Daniel walked to the creek and knelt beside the water, staring at his reflection in the clear stream. Behind him, he could hear Ezra preparing for death, checking his weapons one last time, making peace with whatever gods he prayed to. But Daniel was thinking about something else, about his brother's last words, passed on by a survivor from another hunting party who had found Sweetgrass's body. The man had said that Sweetgrass had spoken of forgiveness, of the need to break the cycle of violence that was destroying both their peoples. There's another law, Daniel said, turning back to Ezra, older than the law of blood. What law? The law of adoption. When a man saves the life of a warrior, when he shows honor to the dead, he can be adopted into the tribe. He can become a brother. Ezra stared at him. But I killed your brother. You also honored him. You gave him a warrior's death instead of a victim's torture. You marked his grave according to our traditions. You've carried the burden of his death for 3 weeks, not as a murderer hiding from justice, but as a man seeking to make amends. I don't understand. Daniel drew his knife, the blade gleaming in the afternoon sun. Blood for blood, but not the blood of death, the blood of brotherhood. He drew the knife across his palm, letting his blood drip onto the earth where his brother had died. Then he offered the blade to Ezra. If you're willing to honor my brother's memory, to carry his name and his spirit forward, then we can end this cycle here, not with death, but with life." Ezra took the knife with trembling hands. "Are you sure?" Sweetgrass spoke of breaking the cycle of violence. Maybe this is what he meant. Ezra drew the blade across his own palm, mixing his blood with Daniel's on the sacred ground. "I swear to honor your brother's memory. I swear to carry his name and his spirit forward." Daniel clasped the white man's bloody hand in his own. "Then you are no longer Ezra Brennan. You are Sweetgrass, brother to Daniel Crowfeather, member of the Lakota Nation." They stood together in the clearing, where violence had once reigned, their blood mingling on the earth, their souls bound by something stronger than death. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, and Daniel felt a peace he hadn't known since his brother's death. "What happens now?" Ezra asked. "Now you learn what it means to be Lakota. You learn our ways, our language, our responsibilities to the tribe. And the men who killed Sweetgrass, the ones who are still hunting us?" Daniel's expression hardened. "They will face justice, but not the white man's justice. Our justice." They spent the night in the clearing, building a fire near the spot where Sweetgrass had died. As the flames danced against the darkness, Daniel told his new brother about their people, about the traditions he would need to learn, about the family he was now part of. "I have a daughter," Daniel said. "She will be your niece now. She'll need to know her uncle's story. What will you tell her? That sometimes enemies become brothers. That sometimes the greatest gift we can give is forgiveness." Ezra, now Sweetgrass, nodded slowly. "And if she asks about her first uncle? I'll tell her he died protecting our people from those who would harm them. I'll tell her he died as a warrior should, fighting for what was right. And if she asks about her second uncle?" Daniel smiled. "I'll tell her he learned that honor has no color, that courage can be found in the most unlikely places, and that sometimes the best way to honor the dead is to live as they would have wanted us to live." They sat together through the night, two men who had been enemies at sunset and brothers by dawn. The fire burned low between them, but the bond they had forged would burn forever, a light in the darkness that had consumed too many lives on both sides of the frontier wars. When morning came, they buried the scalp hunters deep in the earth, unmarked graves for men who had dishonored both their race and their humanity. Then they gathered their belongings and prepared to leave the clearing where death had been transformed into life. "Are you ready?" Daniel asked. Sweetgrass looked around the clearing one last time, at the place where one man had died and another had been born. "I'm ready." They rode together into the rising sun, blood brothers bound by fire and faith, carrying with them the hope that perhaps somewhere in the vast wilderness of the human heart, peace was still possible. Behind them, the clearing settled into silence, watched over by the spirits of the dead and blessed by the promise of the living. The cycle of violence had been broken, not by death, but by the simple recognition that honor and courage could be found in any man, regardless of the color of his skin. And in the years that followed, when the frontier wars had ended and the old ways were fading into memory, the story of Daniel Crowfeather and his adopted brother Sweetgrass would be told around fires throughout the West. A tale of enemies who became brothers, of hate transformed into love, and of the power of forgiveness to heal even the deepest wounds. It was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth living, because in the end, that's what makes us human. Not the color of our skin or the language we speak, but our capacity to choose love over hate, hope over despair, and brotherhood over vengeance. And sometimes, just sometimes, that choice can change the world.